I am Precious Mzea Sakaleji. Welcome to Camnet TV Main News, the headlines. Sean Tembo shocked at BLZ governor's proposal to hike fuel and electricity tariffs. Government to use MAIZE as a collateral to borrow money from banks. HH tells off judges in international news. Nigeria's security steps up effort amid fears of Boko Haram fade in Borno State. And in sports, ESWATINI to host COSAFA Under-20 Championship. Join me with the details after this commercial. And now the main news in detail. Residents of Kanyama Ward 13 have called on the local authority to act on President Hakainde Hichilema to ensure that all illegalities such as land encroachment are put to an end. Speaking to Camnet News, Mr. Francis Kamwena, who is one of the residents, say residents have continued constructing on road reserve with impunity even in the new administration. However, New United Party for National Development Ward Councillor Mr. Leonard Shelo expressed ignorance over what is happening in his ward.
Allocation of land has been one of the highly heated topics in Zambia over the years, with complaints ranging from land grabbing to the putting up of structures on undesignated areas. Such is the case in Kanyama Ward 13 after Banda Clinic, as residents here say illegal construction of houses on road reserves was happening under the past regime and has continued even in the new regime, as new structures are being put up in plain view of the local authorities. The residents here, however, fear that if left to continue, they will be left with no place to pass, even in the case of emergencies such as illness.
And our president is emphasizing you don't need the presidential hand, you don't need the political hand, but you have to work professional. So we are appealing to council to come in. They have been given a mandate to work freely. You know, we don't have, where to put our pipes, water pipes. They are talking about water sanitation by 2030, that every household must have water. Now, how are we going to have water if people can be encroaching the road, the Kameni road we protected for some years ago?
Basegule onani, kunkhala kudwala, kukhala kufera munyumba, kodi tizanyamula bwanji. Mwachionaka?
They have called on civic leaders to be engaging residents so as to know what they would like to be done for them in communities.
Kutosasinkhala jabe mu office bazibwera muno mkomboni bazimvera baziona ma views y'abantu vamene tifutika navo chifukwa iyi road ngati muntu wachoka huku aenda huku afunika kupita mwamenomo si angapite so kuzingulwa kaenda kuja mawaona monga akamba nyumba ile mulibe muntu kuti balendo house for rent azaiona bwanji muntu azapita kulibe ifunika pali road pamene bapita pawazi kuti pali house for rent hapa chifukwa road ya chabwanji ioneka manje pamene pali road singaoneke.
Ile nabwera kuno 1991 and pamene nabwera 1991 for sure hii road inali open and dala mzu atinakupasiwa ma plot haya manje mama chairman. So pamene tinakupasiwa manje mama chairman unalibe batu bakanso benze kuziwa kuti Kanyama izakula banali chabezi
tifuna mwe mwakulakulu mwe muli boma tenganula muliro wanu kuti bantu ankaloma suka ndandizomangibwa tipempa muliro pang'ono tili musanga motatu ntchito tipempa tenganula muliro wanu kwa chino chaka.
The Kanyama residents also state that the new United Party for National Development UPND Ward Councillor Mr. Leonard Shelo came to inspect the road, but nothing has been done about it. However, when contacted, the councillor expressed ignorance about the happenings in his ward. The residents have called for sanity and for all illegal structures to be demolished. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Meanwhile, a few days ago, Zambia joined the Global Village in commemorating Red Day, of which water is key resource. But this commodity still remains a challenge in most parts of the country, especially densely populated areas. One such area is Banda Masauko area in Lusaka's Kanyama compound, where water and sanitation challenges seem not to change. Some residents spoken to are now calling on the relevant authorities to look into their plight.
Banda Masau in Lusaka's Kanyama constituency is one of the densely populated areas lacking water sources due to vandalism by members of the public. This has affected the delivery of clean and safe drinking water, as water sources have not been functioning for the past months, resulting into residents covering long distances to fetch clean water. The residents are now calling on Lusaka Water and Sanitation Utility to come to their aid in the restoration of the community tap, which was vandalized, and another which is in deplorable state.
Pompi sichosa manzi chimita bana chosa chimita pa chipompi hapa so manje tafutika kwenda tapa manzi kuja kusangalala ni kutali tifuna batitandizile batikonsele pompi tafutika kwenda mu vimanzi kujumpa kuja ni ntao ya MAIZE ino vula iroka batikonsele pompi atu pafupi hapa zitapa manzi pafupi pa pompi patu
kuchani wakaika mita bakupa so manzi kwa talipa kwa meti matapa huko.
Very good.
Era time ya mvula manje pitana mu mvula kwenda kutapa manzi uko ni kutali tifuna batitandizileko please tapapata chiketa watu batikonzereko.
Meanwhile, efforts to get a comment from Lusaka Water and Sanitation Utility proved futile by broadcast time, as the phone of the campaign public relations officer, Shamba Muzungu, went unanswered. Blessings Chakwila, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Patriots for Economic Progress PEP has expressed shock over the remarks made by the Bank of Zambia Governor Danny Kalyalia, in which he has advocated for the increase in fuel and electricity tariffs as a necessity to restore fiscal sustainability. PEP President Sean Tembo says it is unheard of anywhere in the world that a central bank governor would be advocating for an increase in key production inputs such as fuel and electricity. Mr. Tembo says the act of increasing fuel and electricity tariffs, which the governor is advocating, has the overall effect of undermining price stability and not maintaining it. He has since advised the Bank of Zambia governor to stick to his job description in execution of his duties.
Patriots for Economic Progress, we noted with a lot of shock yesterday when we had the Bank of Zambia governor advocating for an increase in fuel prices as well as electricity tariffs, because it is unheard of for a Bank of Zambia governor to actually be advocating for an increase in key production inputs such as electricity and fuel, because the primary job of a central bank is to maintain price stability. And so how can someone whose primary job is to maintain price stability be advocating for an increase in prices? We expect that to be under the purview of the Secretary to the Treasury, whose job is fiscal management. So essentially what the governor was doing is that he was overstepping his territory and his job description of monetary policy management, and was now trying to embark on fiscal management.
National Democratic President Mwenya Msenga has revealed that an olive branch was extended to Savoy-led faction to come on board and grow the party, but no response has been given thus far. Mr. Msenga, who assumed the party presidency after the appointment of their leader Joseph Akafumba into the civil service, says the Savoy-led faction should come back home and strengthen the party. He explains that while the NDC is part of the UPND alliance, it is still intact and hopes to support the agenda of the alliance until such a time. He explains that contrary to claims by members of the public that the party is finished, it is intact with all the structures in all the provinces. Meanwhile, Savoy-led NDC Secretary General Charles Kawita has described reconciliation calls by Mr. Msenga as treacherous, adding that he is not the right person to talk about reconciliation when he attempted to deregister the party.
The woman is believed to be a humble person. You know, a woman takes time to react or respond. And when she speaks with a lot of wisdom. But this is not what we are seeing. This is not what we are seeing. Unfortunately, you know, our dear sister has been busy ranting, making certain commentaries which are not really worthy of a perceived president. Yeah, for me, I don't hold any grudge against her. I just want to, again, on this platform, to invite her. Come, let us sit and iron out our differences. Let's bring our members together. Let's ask our members. If we want, let us take it to a vote. Let them elect whom they want to lead them. If they elect her, I'll support her. I'll serve under her. I'll return to my position as Secretary General. And it must be known, these positions, even as we argue over them, they are interim. As a party, we have not started the process of legitimizing ourselves, because we are supposed to start from the lower organs, conducting elections until at provincial level, then come up with an electoral college that should be able to elect who are supposed to be now elected leaders. That's what the constitution of the land entails.
United Party for National Development Copperbelt Provincial Youth Chairman Mr. Wallen Hinyama has warned or suspected Patriotic Front members to frustrating the efforts of the UPND administration. Addressing the media Thursday, Mr. Hinyama has cited the note that the suspension of operation of the Black Mountain is aimed at creating sanity, urging everyone to adhere to the directive until such a time when the matter is resolved. Meanwhile, UPND Vice Chairperson for Politics, Mr. Kangwa Kamando, has called on all the youth countrywide to start positioning themselves to government empowerment programs to be implemented beginning the 2022. He says the youths should focus on positive politics being put in place and unite for the common good.
Black Mountain, the southern Kings are this Black Mountain, for some time, since time immemorial, only few families have been beneficiaries. And as leadership in the province, the government is advising us to do legal businesses by registering cooperatives and companies so that we can as well mine at the dump site. But what we have seen is there are some disgruntled people who want to frustrate the efforts of the government. As the leadership in the province, we are arrived at the fact that every Zambian, we are not dealing with the 2.8 people who voted for our president or for our party. The president now is the president for the Republic of Zambia and is the president for over 18 million Zambians. So even when we are doing what we are doing to legalize our businesses, we know that at the end of the day, it is not about UPND as a political party, but it's Zambians. So us as youth leaders in the Copperbelt, we are looking at the Zambian youth. So since we are looking at the Zambian youth, we have done almost 90% to legalize our businesses.
That we are going to be accessing. We've got 5 million youth empowerment in that. We've got 5 million women empowerment in that. We've got other government programs that are coming up starting in January. So let's focus on the good policies of the UPND, the good policies of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, the policies that have been put up to ensure that all the youths have equal access.
In other news, President Hakainde Hichilema has cautioned judges in the country against thinking that they are above the law, saying justice for all is of paramount importance in the country. President Hichilema says the trend of prolonged justice delivery must come to an end, further urging the judiciary to dispense justice quickly. He has underscored the need for judges and magistrates to be visiting correctional facilities to understand how citizens are suffering due to delayed justice delivery. Speaking when he swore in Paramount Secretaries, Commissioners of Lands and High Court judges at State House Thursday, the head of state called for an end on export bans. And President Hichilema has directed the Paramount Secretaries to observe prudent utilization of national resources.
Thursday, 23th November 2021, President Hakainde Hichilema saw in a number of government officials at State House, who included, under the Judiciary, High Court Judge Ali Sitari, Land Commissioner Lynn Habanji, and permanent secretaries who were appointed last week. Prominent among them is the former National Democratic Congress NDC President Joseph Akafumba, who is now the permanent secretary for the Ministry of Home Affairs, and Kangwa Chileshe, who takes up the responsibility in the Ministry of Youth and Sport. The president cautioned permanent secretaries not to emulate what he said happened during the tenure of the Patriotic Front, when there was allegedly abuse of public resources.
You as permanent secretaries, those before you, were paying for services never received and intended not to be received, but you paid. You put your signature there. Your colleagues put a signature to pay, to effect payment for goods and services that were never received and intended never to be received.
He also tipped them that the forthcoming workshop for controlling officers and ministers will not attract any allowances.
Just advise me next week. Am I right? Next week we have a workshop. A day's workshop. There will be no allowances paid because we'll be on duty. We'll be on duty. That's what was going on. There's a workshop at Mulungushi and schedule of allowances cut. But we are working.
President Hichilema also cautioned judges in the country against thinking that they are above the law. He says the trend of prolonged justice delivery must come to an end.
There are times citizens, common citizens, feel that once people are put on the bench, they're judges, then they're above the people. Then they are above the people. That can never be right. The people sit on top, and we are servants of them. I repeat this point because sometimes when we see adjournments, Madam, made frivolously, one after another.
He urged judges and magistrates to be visiting correctional facilities to understand how citizens are suffering due to delayed justice delivery.
Hear our people and dispense with their business in court. Then we can decongest the detention centers. We can decongest the police cells. Acting Chief Justice, I suggest that in the normal course of duty, I think judges, magistrates, once in a while they must visit police cells. They must visit correctional facilities and see for themselves what's going on there.
And the president says he is positioning Zambia for the export market as he curtailed export bans. Patrick Soko, Camnet News in Lusaka.
Deputy Chief Justice Michael Msonda has urged the Judiciary Service Commission to be transparent and to enhance accountability in the judicial system. Justice Msonda says the Judiciary Service Commission of Zambia must up its game in order for the people of Zambia to regain trust in the judiciary. The Justice Minister, who was speaking during the swearing-in ceremony of Justice Louis Mukanda Mukwisa as chairperson of the Judiciary Service Commission, Justice Msonda also urged the newly appointed chairperson not to hide the whip of discipline to members who are failing to walk up to the expectations.
Those that will be serving with you on the commission to bear upon those solemn responsibilities that are cast upon you. And as I said, the Constitution directs in Article 118 that judicial authority shall be exercised in a manner which reflects accountability. For me, accountability stands at the forefront of everything else that we have to do. We have to understand that the people that you are going to appoint, the people you are going to subretain over in the whole judiciary, and I have to say this, the judiciary is a very big institution. It stretches from Seseke to Kalabo to Kaputa to all over. We have presence everywhere. And yet all these people expect that you know what they are doing, and what they are doing is right, and what they are doing is consistent with the constitutional imperative of being accountable to the people.
The Lusaka High Court has dismissed the petition in which losing Munali independent candidate Thomas Sipalo had petitioned the election of Mike Mposha of the UPND. Meanwhile, the Lusaka High Court sitting in Chinsali District has declared Maureen Mubonga as duly elected Member of Parliament for Mfuwe constituency. And speaking shortly after the court ruling, Ms. Mubonga says elections are won on the ballot and not in the courts of law.
The Chinsali High Court has ruled that Opposition Patriotic Front Mfuwe constituency Member of Parliament Maureen Mubonga has the duly elected Member of Parliament. The Lusaka High Court sitting in Chinsali District threw out the election petition case filed by the losing UPND candidate against the lawmaker. And speaking shortly after the court's ruling, the lawmaker says following this judgment by the court, it's time for her to work and bring development to her constituency.
As you can see, I'm so happy, I'm delighted, I'm thankful to God that for the second time I've been declared duly elected. The message that I want to send to the people out there, and especially my petitioner, is that elections are not won in a court of law. Elections are won in a ballot. I won on the 12th August and I've won again in court, which shows to say the people of Mfuwe, they had somebody in mind they wanted to be their leader. And unfortunately for him, at this point, I happen to be that leader that the people chose. So I think I can also advise him to say, let's move on. Okay, let's move on and focus on development. All of us, when we enter in politics, it's because we want to see development in our respective constituencies. It's not about fights every day.
Shawangadu, Member of Parliament Stephen Kampyungu, had this comment.
You New Dawn, I don't know if it's New Down, get to work for the people of Zambia regardless of where they are. And to their slogan, the only thing we are seeing going forward is dollar against kwacha, which was supposed to drop from mid-morning to the sunset of being inaugurated. Now, we are saying this is what the government should focus on. And I was shocked to hear my colleague who I respect so much, the Minister for Local Government and Rural Development, wondering where the MPs were in the Chamber of Parliament. What kind of hypocrisy is that? Here we are. How many are we? Right here we are 3. The other colleague is just in the other court. The other one will be in the court tomorrow. And our colleagues in other areas, Kasama and in Northern Province, Luapula, it's the same. So when you say where are the members, I'm speaking alone, you should know. Your president was in the same parliament telling the nation that no, we were not going to go into petitions. Where are we? Where are we? Because we could have been in parliament representing our people. So this is the leadership that we have, which is failing to understand that they are now governing. Don't point to us. Us are here to check that your promises are fulfilled. You can't continue saying, no, this one didn't. No. When you take over the driving of the vehicle, you don't appoint to the previous driver.
Meanwhile, the court has also upheld the election of Chama South Constituency Member of Parliament Davison Mungando, and in Lusaka, the High Court has upheld the election of Monali Member of Parliament Mike Mposha. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Republican Vice President Mutale Nalumango says the new administration will prioritize the construction of one-stop centers and fast-track courts countrywide aimed at enhancing the fight against gender-based violence. Speaking during the commemoration of the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls, which also marks the launch of the 16 Days of Gender Activism campaign, Mrs. Nalumango notes that current statistics show that the onset of the coronavirus has caused a sharp increase in GBV cases needing urgent intervention. Meanwhile, non-governmental gender organization Coordinating Council chairperson Mary Mlenga has called for a clear gender machinery which will drive the gender agenda.
Gender-based violence and sexual crimes have remained endemic despite various interventions to curb them. According to data from the Zambia Police, 2020 statistics stood at over 26,000 in comparison to about 25,000 in 2019. The increase has been attributed to the onset of the coronavirus, which has come with regulations such as requiring that more people stay at home during certain periods of time to curb the spread of the virus. Republican Vice President Mutale Nalumango, officiating during the International Day for the commemoration of violence against women and girls, which is also the start of the 16 Days of the Gender Activism campaign, has called on society and stakeholders to speak out on this vice as it has long-lasting effects on victims and society as a whole. She asked that to break free from the cycle, there is need to increase girl education and women empowerment, as well as bringing anti-GBV services closer to the people, including in rural areas.
These interventions will ensure that the fight against gender-based violence is sustainable. Alongside these enduring gender-based violence prevention interventions, the new joint government will continue to uphold and strengthen mitigation measures to minimize the impact of gender-based violence on the survivor. This will be achieved by strengthening the operations on one-stop centers as requested by those that spoke earlier on gender-based violence, shelters for survivors of gender-based violence, establishment of fast-track courts on gender-based violence, and ensuring there is an enabling policy and legislation as requested for. Legislative environment to efficiently and effectively operationalize these structures.
Meanwhile, Non-Governmental Gender Organizations Coordinating Council NGOCC Board Chairperson Ms. Mary Mulenga says there is need for adequate funding to the gender agenda and for a clear gender machinery to be set up apart from the gender division under the Office of the President.
While we welcome the restructuring of the gender machinery which falls under the Office of the President, we are concerned that there is a lack of a clear direction in this endeavor. An elaborate gender machinery will not only help in the fight against SGBV, but will also help in building on the gains made by the country to narrow the gender gaps. We are looking forward to the full operationalization of the Gender Equity and Equality Act.
In adding her voice, Acting United States Embassy Charge d'Affaires to Zambia, Cheryl Stambros, has called for the actualization of the anti-GBV fund.
I would like to make two appeals to the Zambian government and specifically to the recently established gender division. First, actualize the anti-GBV fund. This fund supports survivors to seek justice and hold perpetrators accountable. Second, ensure that fully resourced one-stop centers are integrated into more health facilities to ensure survivors of violence receive comprehensive services for post-violence no matter where they are in this great country.
Meanwhile, the European Union delegation to Zambia and the United Nations have called for the creation of a safe online space, stating that these crimes have also increased on the digital space. Women for Change Executive Director Ms. Lumba Sianga, in an interview, has called for more sensitization on the effects of GBV so as to encourage reporting of these cases. The event was held under the theme, Orange the World, End Violence Against Women and Girls Now. It was attended by representatives of local and international bodies. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
The Zambia National Men's Network for Gender and Development calls on the government to prioritize the following as means of fighting gender-based violence. Network coordinator Nelson Banda has to this effect called on the government through the Ministry of Finance to allocate more funds to the Victim Support Unit of the Zambia Police Service. Mr. Banda notes that the statistics that are released on a quarterly basis by Zambia Police is evidence enough that there is need for the government to allocate more resources to VSU and equip them with adequate transport and equipment to enable officers to investigate sexual crimes and prosecute sexual criminals.
There is overwhelming evidence that is shared by the Zambia Police Service. Those statistics that are shared on a quarterly basis is enough evidence that the unit is handling a lot of complex cases, and this requires that the government should equip the Victim Support Unit with adequate transport and budget allocation so that they can enable so that the Victim Support Unit is able to investigate, sexual crimes. If you look around most of the government agencies, they are well equipped with transport, and yet the Victim Support Unit lacks ample or adequate budget support to enable them carry out investigations. They need equipment, they need gloves, and they need officers who are well motivated. The other thing that we'd like to talk about is the government needs to recognize the International Men's Day, because this day, which falls on 19th of November every year, and this day is very important to bring out issues that affect men, which also lead men to abuse women. So the government needs to recognize this day as a very important day where men can be encouraged to talk about their own experiences on issues affecting them, such as cancer, promoting gender equality, and also promoting the wellness of men and boys on this important day.
You're watching Camnet TV Main News. We take our first set of commercials. We'll be back with more news after this.
Team, the trajectory of the business looks very positive, and it looks like we'll be able to launch the ministry.
There's so much data.
Mom?
Yes, baby?
It says here, global warming and climate change is caused by the pollution from careless activities of human beings.
Wow!
Son, do you know I can turn my phone into a TV remote?
How's that possible?
It's so easy. Check this out.
Be smart, be fast with mega data from Zamtel. Get your 15 GB mobile data for only 100 kwacha, 30 GB mobile data for only 200 kwacha, and your 70 GB LTE data bundle with free Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, and WhatsApp. Visit our Facebook page, website, or service centers countrywide for more information. Zamtel, your digital lifestyle partner.
This is the Rusitu Irrigation Project. It's a government project funded by the World Bank through IDSP.
The project involved laying over 18 kilometers worth of interlinked water pipes that will supply water to the 280 hectares land for small-scale and commercial farmers in Lusitu of Chirundu district. We worked on 35 kilometers of the road network and also constructed 159 concrete water hydrants of different sizes in all 3 tiers. The state-of-the-art water pumping station at the banks of the Zambezi is fitted with 9 water pumps, a dedicated concrete reservoir, a 500 kV automated standby generator, a fully automated pump switching system that is interlinked with a second reservoir of 27,000 cubic liters capacity, which is fitted with 7 water pumps, a standby generator and floater tanks for that extra water pressure on the irrigation lines. Savenda Construction is grateful to the Zambian government and the World Bank for giving us the opportunity to be part of the history of Lesotho, as the project will benefit over 282 households once completed, and is just one of the many that Savenda Construction has embarked on, owing to its track record and capacity to deliver as per requirement. Savenda, save nations, develop Africa.
Your skin is the biggest muscle in your body. That's why we make sure that Oracle is #1 when it comes to taking care of your precious skin. Oracle Pure Petroleum Jelly and Glycerin soothes, moisturizes and keeps your skin perfect. Oracle Pure Petroleum products for that perfect skin.
Welcome back. We'll continue with the rest of the main news. Police spokesperson Ray Hamonga has warned citizens who are in the habit of taking to social media to post unverified incidents of crime, stating that this is creating a false sense of insecurity in the country. In an interview, the police spokesperson says the police service has noticed an increase in the number of people posting past incidents in the present tense, which is creating animosity among citizens. He says citizens should only regard reports from the police service, as it is the designated entity to issue such reports.
And this trend we have seen is growing, where people want to show things as if they happen in real time. And this is what is causing most of this frenzy, people getting apprehensive that maybe there are a lot of accidents that are happening and even crimes. So we want to appeal to the public that not whatever you see on social media could be true. Please, journalists, ensure that you verify with authorized and designated offices. Issues to do with road traffic accidents and criminal issues, those are the sole responsibility of the Zambia Police. So you can get in touch with us or with the commanding officers in these various divisions to verify the details so that you are informed from the right and designated office.
Minister of Agriculture Reuben Phiri has refuted allegations that government has awarded a $50 million United States contract to Alpha Commodities to supply 5,000 metric tons of fertilizer to the farmers in Southern Province. The minister says government has never at any point awarded a contract to the named company and has warned Kabushi Member of Parliament Bowman Lusambo, who questioned the minister on the floor of Parliament, to desist from issuing false information. Meanwhile, the minister says government is in talks with the banks to consider collateralizing maize so as to raise resources to pay the farmers who supplied maize to the Food Reserve Agency and have not been paid yet.
Minister of Agriculture, Madam Speaker, in order to be intimidating me, my own uncle intimidating me because of Alpha Commodities, Madam Speaker, is in order, Madam Speaker. I seek your serious ruling, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Anger was fueled before Parliament Thursday afternoon for the Kabushi lawmaker Bowman Lusambo after Minister of Agriculture Reuben Phiri rebuked him for lying before the floor of Parliament that government had awarded a $50 million United States contract to Alpha Commodities to supply 5,000 metric tons of fertilizer to farmers in Southern Province.
We have been told that you paid Alpha Commodities $50 million to procure fertilizer when you had an opportunity to share that money to pay or to give FRA to pay the farmers.
But in response, the minister has disputed the allegations and says never has government ever awarded the said contract to Alpha Commodities and has advised all those reporting lies to desist from doing so.
The standing orders of this House indicate in the most clear terms that whatever we say should be factual and should be empirical. Madam Speaker, we have never as government paid $50 million to Dr. Jangulu or Alpha Commodities. This has continued to be peddled, and it is not right, and it is a complete misinformation, and in simple terms, a lie.
And Speaker of the National Assembly also took time to warn members of Parliament to stop spreading false information.
There are words that you are supposed to use. You cannot use any other word that will distract the business of this House. If you've got an issue with anybody, because this is an honorable House, occupied by honorable members of Parliament, some things cannot be done in this House. We just have to follow what we are expected of us.
Meanwhile, government says it is in talks with the banks to consider collateralizing maize so as to raise resources to pay farmers who supplied maize under the Food Reserve Agency but have not yet received their payments.
Further, Madam Speaker, we are discussing with banks. We want to collateralize the maize. We want to give the maize to the banks so that they give us money so that we give to the farmer. So we are doing everything possible in the agro-marketing field to find the money.
Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Zambia's statistical agency has revealed that the export of traditional and non-traditional goods in the country have been reducing since May of 2021. Central Statistics Interim Statistician General Mlenga Msepa says the decrease in exports has mainly been on account of decrease in raw materials, intermediate goods and capital goods. Mr. Mlenga says investigations must be conducted to establish why export of raw materials such as copper have been reducing despite the price of the metal being high on the international market. Meanwhile, the country's inflation rate has slowed down to 19.3% from 21.1% recorded in October 2021, driven by price reduction in both food and non-food items.
The country has in the last 6 months witnessed a reduction in the export of both traditional and non-traditional items to other countries, a situation that has raised questions as to why this has been the case. Zambia's Statistical Agency Interim Statistician General Mlenga Msepa has revealed that the decrease in export was mainly on account of decrease in raw materials, intermediate goods and capital goods by 2.5%, 0.1% and 29.8% respectively.
What we're seeing from the graph is that despite the trade balance, which was positive, you see that the exports are not doing quite well. I think the highest we had in the year was in April at 21.7 billion, and from then on it's been declining slowly up to 16 billion in October.
Mr. Msepa, however, says there is need to investigate why the country's exports have been reducing, considering the fact that raw materials such as copper, which is the country's major commodity export, has seen an increase in the price on the international market.
But like I said, I think we need to investigate further and look at the main components of our exports, looking at copper, what's happening in terms of production, and what's happening in terms of the copper being put on the export market. Because if you look at the prices basically have been quite strong. Okay.
Meanwhile, the country's annual inflation rate for the month of November has slowed down to 19.3% from 21.1% recorded in October of 2021 due to the price reduction in both food and non-food items.
Inflation basically on an annual basis falling to 19.3% from 21.1%. and driven by both food and non-food inflation, which slowed down. For all the provinces, annual inflation declined in all the provinces.
And while the total trade in October 2021 decreased by 3.8%, a trade surplus of 5.3 billion kwacha was recorded in October 2021. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The Drillers Association of Zambia Board Secretary Christopher Chilongo has expressed disappointment over the limited participation of indigenous Zambians in the sector. Mr. Chilongo notes that Zambians have limited capital, hence making it difficult to venture into the borehole drilling business. He has since challenged the new Dawn government to empower young people with drilling equipment in order to accord them an opportunity to be self-reliant. Mr. Chilongo says the gesture of empowering youths with fuel tankers must be replicated in the drilling sector.
The regulator, Water Resources Management Authority, before any drilling is done, has to give a no or yes to the step to drilling. So it's upon the Water Resources Management Authority to enforce this regulation, that these drilling companies must, just respect the rules of the game. We want to empower Zambians correctly. So if today we have 123 drilling companies which are owned by foreigners, and we only have 3 drilling companies fully owned by Zambians, that's a matter of great concern. We would like to borrow the experience from the road sector, where the government empowered the locals to be part of the value chain of developing road sector. So even for us, we have appealed to the Ministry of Water, and also I'll be sharing to you that we have also gone very far that we can empower our youths in a similar way the youths were empowered with tankers which have been distributing fuel. We are saying to the government of the day, the new Dawn government today, that they can empower the youths by buying them drilling equipment which they can form cooperatives, and the Drillers Association will be able to get those companies assisted in terms of skills and to be trained and to be qualified to operate the machines, so that we can increase the number of Zambian-owned companies. We've made this appeal and we want to go further with this. We want to propose a business concept to the Minister of Water Development and Sanitation, and indeed even to the Minister of Youth, so they can look at the youths and empower them with drilling machines, and the Drillers Association of Zambia will help into training, so we can have more of our Zambian-owned companies to do the drilling in this country.
We'll take our second set of commercials. Coming next is sports and international news.
Spirit of infirmity never had a legal right in here anymore because she was healed in her soul. He also took care of that accusation in the court where he said, I loose you, and that means to acquit someone of a crime.
Why does he say, be strong and be courageous, Mamutale? Number one, you've got to be strong. You've got to be courageous when claiming the things that belong to you.
If you're up against principalities and powers,
en contra de
and Satan
principados,
is knocking you around,
y el enemigo te está dando contra ti,
put praise on in your car.
pon alabanza.
Put praise on.
So we must learn to depend on the Holy Spirit to tell us what these things are and what's the next thing and what the church ought to be doing, rather than conform to everything that is going on.
He says you're blessed. He says flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father.
He will preach the gospel with great power and influence, I say, even to the nations of the earth. And I began to prophesy his destiny. As I did that, the Spirit of the Lord said, now rebuke the spirit of depression.
The mystery of your unfulfilled prophecy is found in what I'm saying today, if you hear what the Spirit is saying, because the King is speaking.
God has given you will flourish because you have His mind like never before in Jesus' mighty precious name.
Africa is rising to a new dawn of integrity and accountability. Are you tired of being swindled or buying fake or illegal properties? Would you like to sell or buy genuine property? Would you like to list your property on both local and international market? Don't waste your time. Call the professionals, the SGK Properties on +260 762 166 018. SGK Properties. Your business assurance is our priority.
Welcome back. Now getting into our international item. Boko Haram now appears to be on the back foot after 12 years of carrying out attacks in Nigeria's northeastern Borno state. But security forces have stepped up their campaign against the armed group in recent years, and people in Borno state say they feel more at ease about venturing out again. In another international news, a global goal to attain net zero emission by 2050 is contributing to a surge in demand for electric cars. The batteries that power these vehicles contain cobalt, much of which is mined in Democratic Republic of Congo. It is dangerous work, but many miners say they are not getting their fair share of the spoils. Here's a roundup of international news.
This is what the world's soaring demand for cobalt is doing to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Under each of these shelters are deep tunnels dug by hand. They often collapse. At the end of them are deposits of cobalt, of which Congo exported nearly $2 billion worth in 2019, and exports are growing fast. But the miners say they're being cheated.
We're working very hard and digging very far to take this out, but we're getting almost nothing for it. The conditions are dangerous, but we're not paid for our level of sacrifice under the ground.
And the sacrifices are great. The miners working here say when they enter the shaft, it takes them 1.5 hours to climb all the way down and then through the narrow tunnels to reach the rock face where they're cutting out the cobalt. End of their shift, it takes them even longer to climb all the way back up, and it doesn't look safe at all. There are cracks in the sides of the earth, and it's propped up with tree branches and thin timbers. People here told us 2 miners were buried alive the day before we visited. When they didn't come home from work, their wives came here to find out what happened. They're waiting for the bodies to be dug out. The week before, people told us these men died here in another collapse. As soon as the bodies and debris are removed, the miners keep digging out cobalt. Nobody here can afford to stop. There aren't any other jobs for them. This is the end of a line of about 40 men that starts deep underground. About 1/5 of Congo's cobalt is dug out like this by hand. The government's planning reforms. It says it wants to make the sector safe. One rock's taken from every batch to be crushed and tested at buying stations like this one. Most of them have been taken over by Chinese companies in recent years. The amount of cobalt is measured by this machine. All the miners we spoke to say the machines are usually rigged, as are the weighing scales.
Are they taking us for fools or slaves? When we take our minerals to the Chinese, they cheat us on the quality and the weight. How can we, as Congolese, benefit from this way of working?
Days spent digging out earth or rock without any cobalt aren't paid at all. These men have had better luck. They gather at the mine's edge to divide their cash. On the best days, they say they can make about $12 each, but usually it's less than half that. Much of the cobalt will go into the batteries of the world's latest electric cars. Here, it's pushed out of the pit on old bicycles. They risk it all to dig out one of the world's most sought-after minerals, but they only see a tiny fraction of its profits.
Borno State's colourful dabbers are back after years of absence, a heritage dating back centuries. As Boko Haram fighters slowly lose ground, music and dance of a once proud people has bounced back.
Borno has started coming back to life because all that we cannot express during the last 10 years or so is now gradually coming back to life again. So therefore it will actually take us for quite some time before maintaining our former glory as we were known.
Just a few years ago, marriages were either held away from the state or organized with minimal crowds for fear of attacks. Not anymore. Despite economic hardships, such important occasions are now being celebrated with pomp.
People here in Borno State love their cultural festivities, but these celebrations couldn't hold just a few years ago for fear of Boko Haram attacks. As the security improves, families are getting together to celebrate again.
The Nigerian military has stepped up its operations against Boko Haram in recent years. Tens of thousands of displaced people are now able to go back to their homes. And with peace slowly returning, people here are now reviving the festivities and ceremonies of the past.
You can't always be in a sad moment or sad staying. Like as you can see, people are enjoying themselves after services. You go to work, you go to the local government and work. When you come back, you need something like something that will make you happy. You go out there, drink, dance, catch phone and gist with your friends. Yeah.
Borno State has lost many of its musicians and cultural artifacts to the 12-year-old Boko Haram conflict. But government and traditional leaders are pushing for a cultural revival, something elders say could take a decade or more to restore. For now, people here are savoring the social and cultural rebirth of their region, and they look forward to the weekends, especially to unwind and enjoy themselves. Ahmed Idris, Al Jazeera, Maiduguri, North-East Nigeria.
We now get into your sports item. The 2021 COSAFA Men's Under-20 Championship will be staged in Eswatini from December 10th to 18th and feature 9 sides from across the region in a fantastic festival of football to close the year. It will be the first time the competition has been staged in Eswatini since 1993, with Mozambique seeking to retain the title they won last year when they beat Namibia in the final. Namibia will not be back to have another go at the winning trophy, with the confirmed competition nations being Botswana, Comoros, Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Seychelles, South Africa and Zambia. Zimbabwe, who have not won this competition since 2007 but were finalists in 2018, have also opted out, as have Angola, Madagascar, Mauritius from the COSAFA region. The 9 teams will be placed into the pools of 3 teams each, with that draw set to take place on Monday in Lesotho, where COSAFA is preparing to help stage the region's 5 games Maseru 2020. The winners of the 3 pools and the best placed runner-up will advance to the semi-finals. Matches will be played at the Mavuso Stadium in Manzini and the Kalanga Stadium, which has an artificial turf. Well, that sports item brings us to the end of Camnet TV main news, but before we go, here are the headlines once again. Sean Tembo shocked at BOZ governor's proposal to hike fuel and electricity tariffs. Government to use MAIZE as collateral to borrow money from banks. HH tells of judges in international news. Nigeria security steps up effort amid fears of Boko Haram fade in Borno state. And in sports, ESWATINI to host COSAFA Under-20 Championship. Before we go, here's our Camnet verse of the day, and it's coming from the book of 1 Chronicles 16 verse 34 to 35, and it reads, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is God. His faithful love endures forever. And say, save us, God of our salvation. Gather us and rescue us from the nations, so that we may give thanks to your holy name and rejoice in your praise." Thank you for joining us. I am Precious Mzeya Sakaleji. Pleasant viewing.